Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Wasn't quite sure if I was going to do this video or not, but after getting a fair few comments and messages asking why I don't actually go into these topics, I thought I might as well, allocate a bit of time to actually make a video on it, as there's not really enough time, I think, to put out another review on a vehicle that no one's really interested in right now. So I thought I'd probably just do this to fill the gap between doing a video on the dev server when that comes out, which was requested, and the new content when the update actually hits. Yeah, this is a question that I've got a fair few times over the last few updates on why I don't actually look at the pre-orders and the dev blogs and stuff. And the reason why ultimately I don't go into the dev blogs is that I don't really think I can bring much to the table when I'm just, reading off information. I think it's, I don't know enough about the vehicles coming to really help anyone out. And I imagine people watch those videos to get a bit of an idea about what the vehicles are going to be like coming in. And I don't think I can reasonably do that because I can't see into the future. I don't know how vehicles are going to perform. And I think it would be sort of disingenuous of me to present a vehicle that's, right now, just a picture and some text and talk about how it's fundamentally going to work. And I think it's not helpful. It's not going to help anything. And I think it's probably better off going into the dev server to talk about that sort of thing. And on that basis as well, the reason why I didn't cover the dev server before is that things always change, and especially in regards to things like pre-orders and things like that. So nothing on the dev server is ever final, and I don't want to be, so an example could be, I don't want to show a vehicle, so show the new Centurion Premium, whose name I don't want to try and pronounce. And I went through that on the dev server, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing, great BR, really functional, and it worked. I said, everyone pre-order this, it's great, it's going to be amazing, spend your money on it. And when it comes to the live, the BR gets raised, and maybe a couple of things get changed, maybe it loses some horsepower in the engine, maybe the reload's a bit longer, and I don't really want to be in that position where I've said, based on speculation and information that isn't final, spend your money on this. And that's ultimately, I think, the reason why I haven't covered things like the dev blogs and the pre-orders, just because I don't think it's ultimately as helpful as people try and present. Obviously, I'm not trying to say anything bad about any other content creator that covers dev blogs, covers pre-orders and things, because that's perfectly fine. There are people who know what they're talking about and can actually ascertain whether a vehicle probably work or not. I'm not one of those people. And I think even though people can have a good insight on how something's going to perform, even then it's not final, so bear that in mind as well. What I want this video to serve as ultimately is maybe like a little bit of a kind of caution towards pre-orders and things like that, and looking into information that isn't actually, in the game yet, it's just text. So a few examples of this can be things like the Javelin that's coming next update, one of the top tier jets. So as people have said, it's not supersonic in a straight line, and I hope I'm getting this information right. But the thing with this is that even though it's going to be functionally slower than the rest of the jets, someone actually made a pretty good post about this on the Reddit recently, we don't know how it's going to work. Maybe the missiles work really well and it's going to be as functional as the other jets, but we don't know. And just basing, off hard numbers, cold data in the real world and putting that into the game based on speculation, it doesn't make for, an objective standpoint. It's always best to wait and see how the vehicle works, even on the dev server and then on the live server. And I think that's the problem with where pre-orders come in. So, example of this, being a bit cautious about it, is, for example, the Italians get a Tier 5 premium vehicle in the M60A1 from the Special Regiment, and I can't remember the name of it. And sure, you might say, that vehicle's in game now, I know how it works, I know how it performs, so therefore it's going to be great. I like it, I enjoy it on the American side, so I think I should buy it because I think it's going to work. But then you've also got to consider that it might not have a good lineup, as you don't know yet. It might be facing other tanks that it struggles against because the matchmaking Italian tanks are going to get. And do you know what I mean? It's just, you can't be completely sure about something just based on even examples in the game already, because on another nation where you don't know what the lineups are going to be like, you don't know what the matchmaking is going to be like, it could be completely useless or it could be really good. And it's just not really worth taking that risk at this point. Another example of this would be the jet premiums. Obviously, as I've said many times, I'm not a good jet player. I don't really know the meta, and so from looking at these vehicles, I can probably make a bit of a base assumption. And that's that these vehicles aren't going to be great functionally, but they might be good as products. And what I mean by that is that I've seen quite a few people say they're not worth it, they're really boring, they're just copy and paste, it's not worth spending your money on. And whereas that's in some essence true, I think they offer probably the best compromise in these packs. And what I mean is that, so the MiG and the Meteor, they're ground strike variants of aircraft that already exist. And that's a good thing for, I guess, two reasons. One reason is that they're not making unique aircraft behind a paywall, so aircraft that could actually fill quite a specific fighter role. They're not locked, and hopefully they're not going to be locked in the future, and they should be in the main tree when, it gets flushed out along the line. And also, these vehicles will work in up tiers as well, and that's why I think it's important to consider these as products. So say if we got, an obscure Meteor as an example, that didn't have any extra ground strike ordnance and was placed at the game at the same BR. And granted, the matchmaking is probably going to be a bit different in this patch, but just hypothetically, the vehicle could only really be used as a fighter and be put into up tiers and, where it would struggle, especially because new jet players are likely going to be playing them. But if you make them ground strike, no matter the BR, ground strike targets are always going to be available on the map. So on that basis, they work as grinders because the ability to grind is always there, no matter your skill level and no matter the BR. And obviously, it's not going to be as easy as I'm making out because you're going to get intercepted, things like that. But there's ways around it. And that's why I think these vehicles are probably not as bad as everyone's making out. And on the flip side of that, there's the American Sabre, which isn't necessarily better as a ground strike vehicle. But I think this works well in Gaijin's favour as well, as I can imagine the community outrage if Gaijin gave America another pseudo-premium ground strike aircraft for Tier 5. I'm looking at the FJ here with the missiles. I think people would probably be a bit annoyed if America got two viable options for that, and I think this is probably the best decision they could have made. So why I'm bringing up this example of the jets is that for something like the Reaper, the Meteor, the model of the vehicle functionally is already in the game, although maybe this one's going to be a bit slower because it's reinforced. I don't actually know about that, it's just, again, speculation. But we know currently what the BR of that Meteor is in-game, we know how the flight model works, and sure, some players are incredibly good at the Meteor Mark 8. But next update, with the introduction of Tier 6 jets, they may completely change the entire meta of how it works, in that they might decompress all of the BRs, stretch things out. We don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And on that basis, maybe the Meteor Mark 8 or the Reaper, for example, would get shafted, or maybe it would be placed somewhere where it can do really good work. We just don't know. And that's ultimately the reason why I don't cover things like this, is because I'm not going to be right. We have no idea how anything's going to work, even on the dev server. The BR might be different on there than it is on the live, and there's always things that are going to change. So what I want this video is to serve as is a bit of an explanation and just a caution towards, things you might hear, or if you should get pre-orders of vehicles, even if you're 100% certain you know how it's going to work, because it's going to change. Cold data does not necessarily reflect how things work in game. For example, there's real-world factors that don't really factor into the game, like, especially, well, more so for tanks than planes in this example, but, tanks breaking down, randomly catching fire. I mean, things in the real world that can say, oh, this is a bad vehicle because of these reasons, might not necessarily translate into the game. I know that example is not exactly fair, but I hope you can get what I'm trying to get at here. So that's all I'm really saying. I don't really feel comfortable as a content creator making speculation videos on upcoming vehicles until, I know absolutely everything, I know how it's going to work, as I don't want to be, responsible for somebody spending money on something that, as it turns out, isn't very good, and I don't really think that's a fair position to have. And obviously, maybe I'll do this in the future, but only base it purely on speculation, on what we know, and just being really sure to make sure there's a fine line between this is what this is going to be like, and this is what I think this is going to be like. So yeah, hopefully that explanation has cleared a few things up, and hopefully you've come away from this video with a bit of a different perspective on pre-orders, dev server, all of that stuff. Because when it comes down to it, we just don't know.